Boxing, and we back at it. Back at it once again. Fights we didn't get to see. Check out my playlist, man. March Boxing on this Dean, giving y'all classic historical ish. You heard? And this time we going back to a time when the DC, Maryland area was on and popping. You know what I mean? I'm talking about a time when DC area. And when I say the DC, Maryland area, I'm talking about the borderlines of Montgomery County, Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm talking about the borderlines of PG County, Prince George's County, you know what I mean? Whether it's Seat Pleasant, Capitol Heights, Hyattsville, everywhere, you know what I mean? Shout out to the whole 202, 301 Massive. This one right here is for y'all, you know what I mean? Because if y'all remember this era, you know what I mean? In the late 90s or mid 90s to late 90s, when DC had world champions coming out from all kind of divisions, you know what I mean? Yes, indeed. This particular unification that should have happened was right here. We talking about Washington, D.C.'s Keith Holmes. You know what I'm saying? Keith Holmes from Washington, D.C., a southpaw, versus William Joppy from Silver Spring, Maryland. You know what I mean? Now, these two guys knew each other well, of course. They'd even sparred against each other, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I think they'd sparred each other before they were champions, you know what I mean? These are two guys from the area, you know what I mean, on the come up at the same time. Both guys became world champions in 1996, you know? Both guys managed by Don King, you know what I mean? This was a fight that we missed out on as DC boxing fight fans. And you know, if you know anything about the DC, Maryland area, this is a fight city, no question about it. We don't get all the world title fights like New York City do, you know what I mean? But this, no question, is a fight city. When we talking about that late 90s, early 2000s era, we had guys like Mark Too Sharp Johnson, the youngest man ever to get into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He was out there percolating, doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? Of course, Joppy and Keith Holmes, two middleweight champions, both of them holding a portion of the middleweight title, while Bernard Hopkins held the other quarter of the titles. You know what I mean? Um, we had guys like what you call it, Chop Chop Corley. You know what I mean? 140 pounds, WBO champ. We had the WBA champ, um, Shambe Mitchell. You know what I mean? So it was on and popping out here. You know what I mean? And one particular fight that till this day I'm still upset we never got to see this fight. Although both guys, if the destiny was in their hands, if they really wanted to face each other, it was up to them. And they had some obstacles to go through. But we'll get into that at the end of the video. You know what I mean? Yes, indeed. So yeah, man. This was a fight, like I said, we never got to see. William Joppy was a guy who trained out in Capitol Heights at a gym called Round One. You know what I mean? Round One gym is no longer around, just like a lot of boxing gyms around the United States. But the Round One gym was where the man William Joppy would train. You know what I mean? And Keith Holmes would train out of Palmer Park, out of Sugar Ray Leonard's gym out there in Palmer Park, you know what I mean, in Landover, PG County, Maryland, you know what I'm saying? Even Keith Holmes had managers or handlers were the same people who managed and handled Sugar Ray Leonard's career, you know what I mean? I'm not too sure whether it was Mike Trainer. There was another guy, I forgot his name, but you know what I mean? Mike Trainer might have been in the mix as well too, you know what I mean? I'm not 100% positive at the name, but for sure, that's hence the reason why the man would train over there in Palmer Park, you know what I'm saying, at Sugar Ray Leonard's sporting complex, you know what I mean? Now, these two guys became world champions in 1996, the same year. You know what I'm saying? William Joppy did it the hard way. Them fellas went out to Japan to beat that guy, a Japanese guy by the name of Shingen Takahara. Shingen Takahara lost his title to William Joppy in his first title defense, and Shinji Takahara got stopped in the ninth round. And that was a big win, massive win for the man, William Joppy, you know what I mean? Um, Shinshin Takahara had actually beat Jorge Castro, the Argentine, came over to Japan with his WBA world title. You know what I mean? That he beat off of Reggie Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I'm saying? So that's how the man in 1996 became a world champion, William Joppy. You know what I mean? Promoted by Don King. You know what I'm saying? While the man Keith Holmes became a world champion in 1996 as well when he beat Quincy Taylor, and he wasn't supposed to win that fight. Quincy Taylor, that was a big upset, really and truly. You know what I mean? That was a big upset, really and truly. You know, the guy, what's his, he had one loss early in his career, but that was like, you know, that was a long time ago, like in 1992 or 93. If you know anything about Keith Holmes, man, Keith Holmes was a good dude, man. He came from a tough background, comes from the projects in Washington, D.C. But, Keith Holmes was a guy, look, man, Washington, D.C. in the 80s, man, was no joke, man. The city was on fire, you know what I mean? Look, man, you could lose your life, man, just for looking at a dude for too long, you know what I'm saying? You could lose your life for even stepping on somebody's kicks, whether it's their Jordans or their New Balance, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But there we go, Keith Holmes right there as a WBC champion, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, that's Andrew Council. That's a guy he fought. As a matter of fact, when he fought Andrew Council the first time, sure, Keith Holmes won, but he was going through a lot of trials and tribulations in his life. If I'm not mistaken, he was on the run. He was on the run when he fought that fight. You know what I mean? He had a federal warrant from a drive-by shooting that he was allegedly involved in, and he was also a fugitive on the run who missed a court date. So, if I'm not mistaken, in his first fight between Andrew Council and Keith Holmes was under a lot of duress, a lot of stress, you know what I'm saying? And it's a miracle that the man even came out with the victory, you know what I mean? And got the job done. You check it. So, you know what I mean? So when he fought Andrew Council, that was another Washington, D.C. native, you know what I'm saying? Keith Holmes was a tall middleweight, man. Man was like 6'2". You check it, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach, you know what I'm saying? So this guy was a tall middleweight, you know what I'm saying? While the man, William Joppy, was about 5'9" with a 72-inch reach, you know what I'm saying? 72-inch reach. You check it. So the man, William Joppy, is giving up a lot of height, you know what I'm saying, and a lot of reach to the man, Keith Holmes, you know what I'm saying? Keith Holmes. Yes, indeed, Keith Holmes. So, like I said, this fight should have happened. The only common opponent these guys had, as if you know anything about Keith Holmes is a two-time middleweight champion with the WBC. You know what I mean? He got his, in the second loss of his career, he lost a unanimous decision. If I'm not mistaken, I've watched that fight. I think it was in France when he fought this guy by the name of Hassan Sharifi. A lot of people might remember Hassan Sharifi from him fighting Felix Trinidad in Puerto Rico, you know what I mean? So that's the only common opponent that these two brothers fought, you know what I'm saying? And Hassan Sharifi beat the man, um, Keith Holmes, but Keith Holmes avenged that loss a year later, you know what I'm saying? And he stopped Hassan Sharifi in 7 rounds, you know what I'm saying? So he got back his title, you know what I mean? He fought guys like Rob McCracken, who's what's his name's trainer? Anthony Joshua and Carl Froch, former trainer. He beat guys like Paul Vaden, who was a guy who was in a unification fight with guys like Terry Norris. And the guy, Quincy Taylor, I'm sorry, Keith Holmes would talk about how he can't get the fights because he's basically being ostracized and being blackballed because he was under Don King, you know what I mean? And he said he couldn't get any fights with anybody, you know what I'm saying? So that really didn't matter in this situation because Keith Holmes and Joppy are promoted by the same man, you know what I'm saying? Don King, you know what I mean? So let's get into it, man. So this fight never happened, you know what I mean? And I think the ideal time, and they fought, these guys fought on the same card numerous times, you know what I mean? They even fought in Washington, D.C. There was a time when Joppy would be the headliner. There was times when the man Quincy Taylor was the headline. I'm sorry, Keith Holmes was the headliner. You know what I mean? I remember when he fought that man. What's his name? When Keith Holmes fought that guy. Not Robert Crack. What's the other British guy? Guy who lost to Roy Jones in the Olympics. What's that man's name? Richie Woodhall, right? Richie Woodhall, correct? That's his name, yeah. Richie Woodhall went on to become a future super middleweight champion. I mean, but he had lost to the man Keith Holmes and Richie Woodhall, and he got stopped in the 12th round in 1996. And on that undercard was William Joppy fighting. I can't remember who, you know what I mean? But like I said, William Joppy also headlined fights at the MCI Center, you know what I'm saying, in Washington, D.C., where now Keith Holmes, because Keith Holmes, I believe when the man fought Julio Cesar Green, the Dominican dude that William Joppy fought like 3 times. That fight in '99 was in DC at the MCI Center where the Wizards play. It's now called the Capital One Center, you know what I mean? And like I said, man, this fight should have happened, you know what I mean? Both guys knew each other. I used to hear rumors that both guys had crews that didn't get along, that didn't like each other, but both boxers had no problem with each other, you know what I mean? You check it, they just never fought, but they had sparred with each other. I think prior to them becoming world champions, they'd done some sparring. I don't know who got the best of who, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they never fought each other. And I think a perfect time for them to have fought was maybe 1999, you know what I'm saying? 1999 or 2000. Before that middleweight tournament that Don King set up on HBO involving Keith Holmes, William Joppy, Felix Trinidad, and Bernard Hopkins, you know what I mean? But basically, all titles was on the line, and it was all four guys controlled their own destiny in that tournament, from Trinidad to Holmes to Hopkins to Joppy. You know what I mean? And really and truly, that was the opportunity for these guys if they really wanted to fight each other. All they had to do was win, 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 no matter what. You heard? So let's get into it, man. Like I said, man, the reach, man, the reach advantage definitely, and the height advantage goes in favor of the man. Keith Holmes, you know what I mean? And Keith Holmes was a southpaw. Keith Holmes was he was a good southpaw, you know what I mean? A good fighter, you know what I mean? Pretty basic, you know what I'm saying? Nothing, no special effects really with the man Keith Holmes, you know what I mean? Career record of 41 wins, 5 losses, 25 KOs, you know what I'm saying? So he wasn't a super knockout artist, about 54, 55% KO ratio. You know what I mean? But I think he was a better boxer by far, you know what I mean? He was a more seasoned fighter than the man, an experienced fighter than the man William Joppy, you know what I mean? Especially from the southpaw stance. That fight he lost to Sharifi, I thought he lost the fight, but it was a close fight, you know what I mean? And him being on the road, going to France to fight the man Hassan Sharifi, man, he had to get a knockout in France, you know what I'm saying? But I think that the man Keith Holmes would have to use his jab, you know what I mean? Use his jab, keep this guy at the end of his jab, you know what I'm saying? Slip in that left hand, whether it's a straight left to the stomach, you know what I'm saying? And counter with the right hook, or if he's going to throw that jab, that straight jab to the stomach or to the head, you know what I'm saying? And catch him with, set up traps to, you know what I mean? To drop that left hand on the man. Yeah, like I was saying, man, sorry I had a little interruption, but yeah, was a more aggressive fighter though. The man William Joppy, you know what I mean? And William Joppy is a guy who can get hurt, you know what I'm saying? I've seen him hurt numerous times, you know what I mean? I've seen him hurt versus guys like the Shinji Takahara guy when he won his first world title. When he had his very first loss to Julio Cesar Green, the Dominican guy that he fought 3 times, you know what I mean? And also, it's because he leaves himself open. And really and truly, both guys, like I said, Keith Holmes was a more seasoned veteran fighter. Keith Holmes started boxing at the age of 9, as opposed to the guy William Joppy who started boxing at the age of 20. You know what I mean? And you see, the guy had a lot of bravado in him. William Joppy. You know what I mean? William Joppy was a kind of guy who thinks he can beat anybody. You know what I mean? He was talking cash money ish to them. What's his name? To Felix Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? He had a confidence about himself because maybe because he's a guy who started boxing late and how he was knocking fellas out. You know what I mean? In his 40 wins, he has 30 by KO. 40 wins, 7 losses, 30 by KO. You know what I mean? You check it, and William Joppy, I think, was had a very good right hand, and that might give the man Keith Holmes some problems. But I think Keith Holmes would just keep pumping that jab. He'll moving laterally to avoid that man's straight right hand. He's going to be moving. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be moving towards his left to avoid that man's right hand. You know what I'm saying? And he's going to be dropping in his left, setting up traps for William Joppy. You know what I mean? I think William Joppy was always open for some counter shots because he threw punches in bunches. And anybody who knows, if you throw in combination punches, you're actually leaving yourself vulnerable to one or two punches, and it could be the devastating punch that ends the fight that you could be countered with when you let your hands go. You know what I mean? And that was what I seen when he fought the man Julio Cesar Green. You know what I'm saying? So and when he fought the man Trinidad, you know what I mean? Trinidad just exposed him and disposed of the man. You know what I'm saying? I was a big fan of Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? So that fight I was pretty conflicted. I wanted the hometown guy to get the W. But I was also a fan of Trinidad, but I didn't pick with my heart. I knew that the man Trinidad would come up in weight and would beat the man William Joppy, because William Joppy, he got clipped too many times for my liking. And when you face a guy like Trinidad or even Keith Holmes is going to beat you with accumulation, not necessarily stop you, but I think he'll win a points decision. And I think it'll be a close fight. I think the advantages that the man William Joppy would need. William Joppy was more of an outside fighter. You know what I mean? He'll use his jab, double up his jab, and then come in with that straight right hand and be an ambush fighter. I think that he'd keys to victory for the man. Excuse me. Keys to victory for William Joppy. He'd have to get on the inside and have to fight a disciplined fight. And I personally just can't see that man fighting a whole disciplined fight for 12 rounds. You know what I mean? I think the stakes would be high, being that it's a local fight. If the fight would happen in Washington, D.C., it would be a fight where the city would be divided. You know what I mean? Some going for William Joppy, some going for the man Keith Holmes. But I think ultimately Keith Holmes, what's his name? William Joppy would make a few more mistakes than the man William Joppy than Keith Holmes, and Keith Holmes would win a unanimous decision, a close unanimous decision, but probably 7 rounds to 5. You know what I mean? And I could see William Joppy complaining and saying he won the fight because it would be a close unanimous decision. You know what I mean? Not nothing wide. 7 rounds to 5 might even be a split decision actually, because it's a hometown fight, you know what I mean? But this is a fight we got to miss out as boxing fans, but not more than all us boxing fans in the D.C., Maryland area, you know what I mean? We definitely got to miss out on this unification. But then again, like I've said, this is for the third time. All these guys, from Keith Holmes to William Joppy, control their own destiny. Because if the man Keith Holmes really wet the bed and did nothing against the man Bernard Hopkins in that unification, WBC, IBF, you know what I mean? That was thorough domination from the man Bernard Hopkins, you know what I mean? And if Keith Holmes won that fight, he would advance. And if William Joppy had beat Felix Trinidad, he would have advanced. And guess what? Big unification for Undisputed in Washington, D.C. at the MCI Center at the time, now the Capital One Center. Like I said, both these guys control their own destiny. Unfortunately for them, they did face better fighters than them at the time, Hall of Famers, and unfortunately they lost. But if these two guys fought, William Joppy and Keith Holmes, I'd favor the man Keith Holmes to win. You know what I'm saying? By outboxing, you know what I mean? Making less mistakes, outboxing the man William Joppy. You know what I mean? Will Keith Holmes get hurt in the process? Sure, I think that those rounds that William Joppy will win, you know what I mean? I think the right hand will land, you know what I'm saying? And he'll be trying to close the distance, trying to go in for the kill. But I think Keith Holmes will hold on for dear life and reset and get back to outboxing the man William Joppy. There was a point in time when William Joppy also got into a serious car accident sometime in between 96 and 99. And that possibly might have been a reason why the fight never happened, you know what I mean? Both guys are two-time champions. Some people say William Joppy's a three-time WBA champion, but I'm not counting that title that he beat. Was it Howard Eastman after he had lost to Bernard Hopkins? Right? He fought. Was it Howard Eastman? Or after he lost to Felix Trinidad, he beat Howard Eastman for a vacant regular WBA title. You know what I mean? And I didn't count that as a world title because Bernard Hopkins has the Super WBA title. So that's what we're not gonna do. Both guys did lose while they were champions, but they avenged them losses before they got into the tournament in the HBO Don King middleweight tournament. Keith Holmes lost to Hossein Sharifi. He avenged that loss, got back his title, and the man William Joppy had lost to Julio Cesar Green, the Dominican, and he avenged that loss and got back his title. So possibly, I think when they had both got back their titles, I think that unification at that particular time was where to go. But Don King, I guess he delayed it. I guess he probably did see a lot of marquee cash value in both guys. You know what I mean? Both guys weren't no household names or nothing, you know what I'm saying? Not as much as B Hop and Felix Trinidad. So he set up that tournament and the rest is history. Bernard Hopkins becomes undisputed. B Marsh Box, leave your thoughts and comments. Let me know who you guys think would have won this fight, and I'm out of here. Peace.